What is the one move, the single move, that turns a regional war into a global war? Not a nuclear strike, not an invasion, not an oil embargo. One building, one structure on one hill in one city. And if it gets destroyed, 2 billion people enter this war overnight. Not metaphorically, literally. I'm going to show you the game theory behind why this is not just possible. It is the logical outcome of two religious scripts converging on the exact same location at the exact same time. And I'm going to give you 3 predictions at the end. If all 3 come true, the theory holds. If one fails, everything I just said is wrong. Okay? Let us begin. You need to understand something about wars. Wars do not escalate because of military logic. They escalate because of coordination mechanisms. What do I mean by that? A coordination mechanism is anything that allows millions of people to act in the same direction without needing a phone call. Money is a coordination mechanism. Nationalism is a coordination mechanism. But the most powerful coordination mechanism in human history, the one that transcends borders, transcends time, transcends ethnicity, is religious scripture, a scripture that billions of people already know, already believe, already act on. And when 2 of these scripture point at the same physical location, you get a convergence. I call this the law of eschatological convergence, where religious endgame scripts overlap. You can predict what the players will do because they are not improvising. They are following the script. So what is this location? Al-Aqsa Mosque, Jerusalem, the 3rd holiest site in Islam. 1.8 to 2 billion Muslim consider this sacred ground. Not symbolically sacred, sacred enough to die for, sacred enough to declare war for. And right underneath it, the Temple Mount, the holiest site in Judaism, where the first temple stood, where the second temple stood, and where a very specific group of people want to build the 3rd temple. The problem, you cannot build the 3rd temple without destroying Al-Aqsa. Make sense? These 2 scripts, the Islamic script and the Zionist eschatological script, both require control of the same 35 acres of land. That is the convergence. That is the bomb. Now let me show you why this is not theoretical. This is happening right now. Netanyahu was seen reading a book, Rome versus the Jews. The story of how Rome destroyed the Second Temple and scattered the Jewish people. Now, why would a prime minister read this in the middle of a war? Because in his framework, the lesson of that book is that the Jews lost last time. They will not lose this time. But here is the part that should make you pay attention. In Netanyahu's reading, Rome is not Iran. Rome is America. The declining empire that will eventually turn on Israel, just like Rome turned on Judea. His long-term vision, what some call Pax Judaica, is a world where Israel does not depend on America, where Israel is the power. And the 3rd temple is the symbolic center of that vision. Still think this is fringe. Pete Hegseth, the United States Secretary of Defense, gave a speech in Jerusalem calling for the reconstruction of the 3rd temple. The American Secretary of Defense, talking about rebuilding a religious structure that requires the demolition of the 3rd holiest site in Islam. This is not some rabbi in a basement. This is the man who commands the most powerful military on earth. Okay? And it gets worse. There are recordings of rabbinical discussions about using the Iranian attack as a pretext. The logic goes like this. Iran attacks. In the chaos, Al-Aqsa gets damaged. Maybe a missile lands nearby. Maybe debris hits the structure. And then, oops, it is destroyed. And who gets blamed? Iran. Not Israel. Not the settlers. Iran. It is a false flag framework built into the eschatological plan. Does that sound insane? Yes. Does it follow game theory logic perfectly? Also yes. Because the players who want the 3rd temple understand that they cannot destroy Al-Aqsa openly. The reaction will be immediate and global. But if it happens as collateral damage during a war that someone else started, the calculus changes, at least in their minds. Now, flip the board, look at the other side. Shia Islam has its own script, and it also converges on this moment. The Shia faith is built on martyrdom. It is the foundational story. Hussein at Karbala, the righteous leader who chose death over submission. And when Khamenei was killed in the bombing of Tehran, when he chose to stay instead of fleeing to Moscow, when he died with his daughter and grandchildren, he became the next Hussein. That is not a metaphor. That is how Shia theology works. His death is not a defeat. It is fuel. It is the kind of fuel that turns a population into a weapon. And you need to understand how Iran is structured for war. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. The command structure is decentralized. Every region has its own orders, its own commanders, its own supply chains. You cannot do shock and awe against the decentralized system. There is no head to cut off because they already planned for the head being cut off. The Iranian foreign minister went on American television and said it plainly. We are waiting for ground troops. We have prepared for 20 years. It will be a disaster for them. And here is the irony that nobody talks about. The urban, educated Iranians, the ones in Tehran, the ones who speak English, who use social media, many of them would have supported regime change. They were the natural allies of the West. And what did the bombs hit? The cities, the schools. A missile hit a school in southern Tehran, killing roughly 150 girls. The Americans say it was a defense missile that went off course. The Iranians say it was intentional. It does not matter who is right. What matters is the result. The people who might have been allies are now either dead or radicalized. And the rural population, the true believers, they were already ready for jihad. Now they have their martyrs. Now they have their Hussein. So you have two scripts. The Zionist eschatological script says, build the third temple, fulfill the prophecy. The Shia jihad script says, avenge the martyr, defend the holy sites, fight the great Satan. And both scripts point to the same place, Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa, the Temple Mount. This is where my formula comes in. Mass times energy times coordination. These are the three factors that determine who wins any conflict. Mass is numbers, troops, population, resources. Energy is intensity, how hard each individual is willing to fight. And coordination is a multiplier, how effectively they act together. Coordination is 4 times more important than mass. Energy is 2 times more important than mass. A small, coordinated, highly motivated force beats a large, disorganized, unmotivated one every time. Now, apply this to 2 billion Muslims. The mass is there, obviously, but mass alone does not matter. What matters is whether you can coordinate that mass, and what coordinates 2 billion people across dozens of countries who speak different languages and have different governments. A shared religious script. If Al-Aqsa is destroyed, every Muslim on earth has the same script, the same call, the same obligation. You do not need a phone tree. You do not need a UN resolution. The coordination mechanism is already installed. It has been installed for 1400 years. You just need to trigger it. And the energy. Martyrdom provides infinite energy. A fighter who is afraid to die calculates cost and benefit. A fighter who wants to die, who believes death in his cause is the highest possible achievement, that fighter breaks every model, every military simulation, every war game. You cannot deter someone who wants to die. You cannot threaten someone who sees threat as a gift. That is what makes us different from every other war. So the question is not whether 2 billion Muslims would react to Al-Aqsa being destroyed. Of course they would. The question is whether the players who want the third temple are rational enough to see this and stop. And the answer, based on everything we're seeing, is no, because they have their own script. And their script says this is supposed to happen. The conflict is supposed to happen. The tribulation is supposed to happen. And the temple is supposed to be built. This is the convergence. 2 groups of people following 2 different scripts that demand opposite things in the same location. And both groups believe that God is on their side. That is not a negotiation. That is a collision. Now here's where I want to be honest with you. I could be completely wrong. This is analysis based on game theory, incentive structures, and the logic of eschatological coordination. So I'm going to give you 3 specific predictions, 3 testable claims, and you can check them yourself. Prediction 1. The United States will commit ground troops. The 82nd Airborne has already received deployment orders. There are rumors of taking Karg Island, which handles 90% of Iranian oil exports. Mission creep will happen, exactly like Vietnam. They will say it is limited. It will not be limited. Prediction 2. Nuclear weapons will not be used. I'm 100% confident on this. Russia provides the nuclear umbrella. The message is simple. If you use nukes on Iran, we use nukes on you. Mutually assured destruction still works. Prediction 3. Al-Aqsa will be destroyed, not by a direct Israeli military operation, but under the cover of war, collateral damage, blamed on Iran or on the chaos of conflict. And when it happens, 2 billion people enter this war. If all 3 predictions come true, the theory of eschatological convergence holds. The religious scripts were the coordination mechanisms all along. If even one fails, my entire analysis is wrong. And I will say so. But ask yourself this. Look at the players. Look at the incentives. Look at what Hegseth said in Jerusalem. Look at what Netanyahu is reading. Look at the rabbinical discussions about using Iran as a pretext. Look at the Shia response to Khamenei's martyrdom. Look at the decentralized command structure, waiting for ground troops. And then tell me, does this look like a regional war? Or does this look like 2 scripts racing toward the same ending? Because the scariest thing about eschatological convergence is not that people believe in prophecy. It is that when enough people believe in the same prophecy and act on it, the prophecy fulfills itself. Not because God willed it, but because the players made it happen. That is game theory with a theological accelerant. And right now, both sides are accelerating.